Venezuela President Nicolás Maduro confirmed that he had a phone call with his U.S. counterpart, Donald Trump, and he described it as very respectful and cordial. In Paraguay, health workers protested in front of the presidential palace, demanding dignity and urgent improvements in working conditions in the public sector. And Gaza authorities denounced the violation of the ceasefire agreement by Israel, resulting in over 1,200 dead and wounded since October 10th. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos, and from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. We begin with the information. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro revealed that he had a telephone conversation with his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump, which he described as respectful and cordial. The president assured that the call was initiated by the White House and that he advocated for direct dialogue for peace amidst the U.S. military deployment near the Venezuelan coast. From an event in Petare in Miranda State, the head of state affirmed that the call is welcome as long as it represents a step towards dialogue and diplomacy. President Maduro also emphasized that the U.S. citizens oppose long conflicts abroad, referring to Washington's past track record. In turn, he concluded by stating that the colonial powers of the world will never be able to subjugate the Venezuelan people. Meanwhile, in the United States, interfaith leaders and community leaders from New York held a vigil for peace and dialogue for Venezuela. Various interfaith and community leaders gathered in New York to demand that the U.S. government find a diplomatic solution in Venezuela in the face of the growing threat by the Donald Trump administration to carry out a military intervention in the South American nation, in a vigil that aligns with the urgent calls from the Vatican and the World Council of Churches. The organized denounced that reports of U.S. military attacks that killed more than 80 people, in addition to the military deployment in the Caribbean, operations classified as extrajudicial executions and violations of international law. They also emphasized the need for diplomacy to prevent further loss of innocent lives if the Trump administration engages in a war not authorized by the U.S. Congress.
Intense relationship we have had with the government over the last 25 years in the United States. We have never been in a situation like the one we are now, where we have a navy, the largest navy in the world, that has docked near our coasts and is killing civilians in small boats, and these civilians are not fighters who should be killed in a conflict. I tell you, there is no conflict. There are no combatants. There are no armed attacks. There are no international or national conflicts, as they want to say. They want to say that they are killing terrorists. There are no terrorists in Venezuela. There has never been an attack by Venezuela on the United States, nor a terrorist attack, nor an attack by an armed conflict.
And in this context, 2 new flights with over 500 Venezuelan migrants from the United States and Mexico arrived in Caracas on Wednesday as part of the humanitarian Back to the Homeland plan. The flights are the first to arrive with Venezuelan migrants in the Bolivarian nation since U.S. President Donald Trump declared the closure of its airspace last weekend. With Wednesday's arrival, more than 18,000 Venezuelan migrants have come back home as part of the government's efforts to guarantee the safely return of Venezuelan migrants. Authorities emphasize that the returnees are contributing to the nation's economic growth and productive development. Meanwhile, thousands of Venezuelans remain stranded in Spanish airports after the flights to their homeland were canceled amid the growing escalation of threats from the United States to the Caribbean. The suspension of flights to Bolivarian territory has affected Venezuelan passengers following the unilateral and illegal announcement by U.S. President Donald Trump of the alleged closure of Venezuelan airspace. In this context, organizations and governments around the world have condemned this illegal and unjustified aggression against the Venezuelan people. In response to U.S. threats, President Nicolas Maduro activated a special migration return plan aimed at compatriots who remain stranded abroad, demonstrating that Venezuela is exercising full sovereignty over its airspace and territory despite unilateral coercive measures. We go now to other topics. The presidential candidate for the Libre Party, Richie Moncada, denounced that in Honduras there is an electoral coup underway by the bipartisanship sponsored by U.S. interference. In a special interview for teleSUR, the candidate reiterated that the two-party system is committing electoral fraud, whose maneuvers had already been denounced in advance. Moncada explained that the inconsistency in more than 3,000 records altered the preliminary results, and despite this, the CNE, or the electoral authorities, issued data in favor of the two-party system. The candidate assured that she could accept the results that are 100% of the records verified by the Libre Party system. Subsequently, Richie Moncada also denounced the threat made by U.S. President Donald Trump against the Honduran people if they did not vote for the candidate of his choice, an action that confirms the interference. In this regard, she also rejected the pardon granted to former President Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was convicted of drug trafficking, a pardon that contradicts Trump's supposed fight against drugs. And Colombia's National Electoral Council, the CNE, officially granted legal status to the historical PAC political movement on Wednesday, approving the merger of three political organizations and consolidating its electoral strength. The electoral body's document recognizes the legal status of the historical PAC political movement formed from the merger of the Patriotic Union Party, the Alternative Democratic Pole Party, and the Colombian Communist Party. The resolution was registered in the Registry of Political Parties, Movements, and Groups. Once the sanctioning of the merged organizations is complete, they will be dissolved without liquidation, and their rights and obligations will be assumed by the new political movement. We go now to Brazil, as former President Jair Bolsonaro, who is serving a sentence in a closed prison for coup plotting, could be transferred to a semi-open prison on April 23rd of 2033 and be eligible for parole on March 13th of 2037. This information is contained in the conviction certificate sent this week to the Federal Supreme Court by the Criminal Enforcement Court of the Federal District. Sentenced to 27 years and 3 months in closed prison, the end of his sentence is scheduled for 2052. Bolsonaro began serving his final sentence at the end of November at the Federal Police Headquarters in Brasilia. The order to execute this sentence was issued by Minister Alexander de Moraes on November 25th, when Bolsonaro was in preventive detention after disobeying court orders. Now we have a short break coming up, but first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. We continue with more information. Health workers in Paraguay protested in front of the presidential palace, demanding dignity and urgent improvements in working conditions in the public sector. The protest, led by the National Medical Union, was intended to demand that the government of Santiago Peña immediately implement decent working conditions for the public health sector. The professionals pointed out that the root of the problem goes beyond low investment and is exacerbated by the current administration's poor public management. The union announced that the protest will continue with the aim of defending their labor rights and fundamentally ensuring a functional health care system that benefits all Paraguayan citizens. And at this moment, we go to Peru as the government extended the state of emergency for 30 days to address the rise in crime in the capital and the nearby port city of El Callao. The measure restricts constitutional rights and large demonstrations even after the increase in protest against interim President José Geri over the past month. Geri also submitted a bill to Parliament requesting special powers for 60 days to legislate on public safety. The proposal will complement the operations already underway, so it is expected that the parliamentary plenary will approve it. And as of December 3rd, Costa Rica has recorded 815 homicides, 5 of them over the last weekend. According to the Judicial Investigation Agency, the number of deaths caused by armed attacks as of this Wednesday exceeds the reported by the year before, just 1 month before the end of 2025, the third consecutive year in which the country has accumulated this number of deaths after 2023 and 2024. The Central American country set a record in 2023 with 906 people killed, making that year the most violent in history, while 2024 the number fell to 880. The total number of homicides to date this year is very similar to that of 2024, as at the end of November, 797 deaths had been recorded. Remember, we are talking about annual losses of lives. And starting December 10th, Facebook, Instagram, Kik, Reddit, Snapchat, Threads, TikTok, X, and YouTube could face fines of up to $33 million if they fail to remove the accounts of Australian children under 16. Social media platforms must report monthly how many children's accounts they close once Australia begins enforcing its 16-year age limit. Live streaming service Twitch was added to the list of age-restricted platforms less than 2 weeks ago. The Australian e-Safety Commissioner will send the 10 platforms notices on December 11th, demanding information about the numbers of accounts removed. Monthly notices would follow for 6 months. The e-safety regulator said a court would apply the penalty up to the maximum if the platforms had repeated violations.
In 1 week, Australia will become the first country in the world to ban under 16s from having social media accounts. With one law, we can protect Generation Alpha from being sucked into purgatory by predatory algorithms described by the man who created the feature as behavioural cocaine. Through one reform, more kids will have their time back to learn an instrument or a language, or walk their dog, or master a torpedo punt, or the perfect lob pass.
Now in other news, French President Emmanuel Macron arrived in Beijing to hold a key meeting with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. In addition to economic issues, the leaders plan to address highly sensitive international issues such as the war in Ukraine and the situation in Taiwan. The Chinese government said that the visit aims to strengthen a comprehensive strategic partnership based on cooperation, mutual respect, and mutual benefit. The state visit is part of the commemoration of the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries, a milestone that sets the tone for a comprehensive strategic partnership. Now we have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverages, and much more. Follow the page and activate notifications to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. We continue with more information. In this case, we go to Palestine because Gaza authorities denounced the continued violation of the ceasefire agreement by Israeli occupation forces, bringing the number of dead and wounded to over 1,200 since the truce took effect on October 10th of this year. The Gaza Health Ministry informed that the total number of people killed since the ceasefire was declared has risen to 360. Palestinian authorities also reported that 922 people were injured and 617 bodies were recovered. The latest attacks by the Israeli occupation have been focusing on several key areas of the Gaza Strip, including Gaza City, Han Yunis, and Rafah. In addition to the human casualties, the Gaza authorities denounced the Zionist occupation for continuing to impose severe restrictions on the entry of humanitarian aid, which significantly aggravates the livelihood crisis suffered by the population.
They were sleeping civilians and children, hit by 4 missiles. Is this their target? Is this Israel's goal? To kill Palestinians. The main goal is to kill and terrorize the Palestinian people. We want to live with dignity like other nations. We hope the world will stand with us and end the bloodshed, so to begin the second phase of the agreement, followed by the third phase of reconstruction, so we can return to living as we did before.
And representatives from Lebanon and Israel held their first direct talks in over 40 years under the ceasefire agreement. This meeting took place at the headquarters of the United Nations peacekeeping force in the town of Nakura on the border with Israel. Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam emphasized that despite this new diplomatic contact, this meeting does not equate to broader peace talks between the two countries, which officially remain in a state of war. Salam added that the objective of these meetings is to achieve the total withdrawal of Israel from Lebanese territory, where the Zionist army maintains positions in the south of the region. In India, an aircraft made an emergency landing at Mumbai airport after receiving a bomb threat. The flight traveling from Kuwait to Hyderabad was diverted in the air after officials received an email warning that there was a human bomb on board. After landing, the aircraft was immediately transferred to an isolation area where bomb disposal teams inspected it and concluded that it was a false alarm. According to official data, in the course of the past year, 2024, the number of calls with false bomb threats was 999. The Aviation Security Agency proposed a flight ban of up to 5 years for anyone who issues such an alarm. We continue in India, where its capital, New Delhi, is covered by a dense layer of toxic smog. The density of the toxic fog hides buildings and landmarks for miles. Environmental data attributes this pollution to a combination of crop residue burning by farmers in neighboring states, factory emissions, traffic congestion, and other climatic factors. The same report also points out that on some days, the concentration of PM2.5 fine particles exceeds the maximum limit recommended by the World Health Organization by dozens of times, exposing nearly 30 million people to various health risks. And in the south of Asia, heavy rain weather forecasts set off alarms in Indonesia and Sri Lanka, still dealing with the aftermath of recent floods and landslides. Let's recall that last week, two separate weather systems hit both nations as parts of southern Thailand and northern Malaysia last week, leaving more than 1,500 people dead. In Indonesia alone, the death toll has reached 836, while uncertainty remains for the more than 500 still missing. Meanwhile, in Sri Lanka, at least 479 people died and hundreds remain missing as well. In this context, weather agencies in both nations have warned the regions would see moderate to heavy rain between Thursday and Friday, with the downpour starting overnight and with less intensity than last week. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.